This is the very controversial Geek to Freak experiment. I gained 34 pounds of lean muscle tissue in 4 weeks. I also lost 3 pounds of fat.
This is completely unrealistic. And
I gained 34 pounds of lean muscle tissue in 4 weeks.
Let's talk about realistic expectations in the gym for muscle gain, so you understand what to expect, so you don't get frustrated when you hop into the gym and you start pumping the weights trying to meat stack up your body. I'm going to start off with a completely unrealistic, potentially criminal representation of muscle gain process. Tim Ferriss. Okay.
I gained 34 pounds of lean muscle tissue in 4 weeks. I also lost 3 pounds of fat.
So it's 2 30-minute workouts per week.
Here we go. 34 pounds of meat in 28 days. It's like, people believe it. Look at the comments here. That's more than a pound a day.
Wow!
So somehow Tim's body is metabolizing an additional pound plus of meat onto his frame every day. And somebody who's going to go up there and lie to people and have presentations and create all this content and make a bunch of money off books and training programs. And the whole time they're standing on an absolute pile of horse shit. But nobody can smell it. That kind of smells funny in here. What's that, Tim? Do you smell that? Tim's like, no, man, I don't smell anything, man. Smells like gains to me. Must be gains. All right, sign me up for your program. I thought I smelled horse shit, but I guess I'm just crazy. Okay, 49 pounds of muscle in 2 weeks. Sign me up. I want to do that. Dude, that sounds normal. It sounds like something my heart could definitely handle. My heart could definitely imagine putting on 34 pounds of pure lean muscle mass in 28 days. I don't even know if that's possible with heavy gear usage. Anybody out there who knows, is more familiar with that? Is that even possible? Like, obviously you can put on that amount of weight in 28 days, but like pure muscle tissue, 34 pounds in 28 days, would that be like a world record? Has anybody ever done that?
I also lost 3 pounds of fat. So it's 2 30-minute workouts per week.
Oh, bullshit.
It's 1 set to failure per major muscle group, 1 time per week. You're done. It is enough to catalyze an entire cascade of fat loss. It is enough to gain 34 pounds of muscle in 1 month.
Bullshit?
Watch out for this. You never wear freaking sleeves and sign up for my arm program to absolutely juicify your upper deck meat hogs, the big old thickies, the sick, wicked, nasty pythons, the sleeve busting girth monsters, splitting out the sides of your shirts, all right? If that's what you want in your life, you want to be a unit sporting some of those bad boys cruising around the world, then it's an absolute no-brainer to sign up for the program, man. It's going to help you to absolutely juicify your freaking pipe daddies. All right, now we're going to get a little bit more squirrely. This is like a questionable rate of progress here. Tristan Lee.
In 30 weeks, I gained 35 pounds.
Holy crap.
All right, and people are freaking out in the comments. He's doing the RP Mike Israetel program, and, you know, he's saying he's gained 35 pounds in 30 weeks. And people are losing their minds in the comments saying it's steroids, it's not natural, blah, blah, blah. But if you actually watch the video and listen to what's going on, he started out at 120 pounds at age 15, okay? Got into lifting, bodybuilding seriously. From age 15 to 19, he went from 120 pounds to 145 pounds, which is totally attainable naturally. That's great progress, but putting on 25 pounds of muscle over the first 4 years of lifting is a reasonable, possible, natural rate of progress. From age 19 to 21, he doesn't make any progress, and he's an extremely lean body fat percentage. Anybody who's familiar with Tristan Lee, he's kind of famous for being like freakishly lean. Okay, and it sort of makes sense that maybe he's not going to see additional progress, and his progress might be hindered by the fact that he's not consuming any carbohydrates, and he's following the carnivore diet where all he's eating is meat. And then he hops on with the RP guys, starts working with Jared Feather, and they slowly introduce carbohydrates into his program. And he gains 35 pounds of overall mass, going from about 137 at the beginning to 172. When he first started at 137, he's saying he's super freaking lean. All right. And now after the bulking up to 175, he comes back down to 153. Again, super lean, like 6-7% body fat, apparently. So he went from super lean at 137 to super lean at 153. That's 16 pounds of muscle gain. 16 pounds of muscle in 7.5 months. Now, for a more experienced lifter, after you've already put on 25 pounds of muscle and been lifting for a few years, that's extremely suspect and not that realistic. But given that his circumstance was pretty unique and that clearly he was at extremely low body fat percentages following the carnivore diet, he could have been throttling or impeding his ability to gain more muscle. And once introducing more carbohydrates, changing his program structure, it's maybe possible that he could put on 16 pounds of muscle in 7.5 months. When you say that out loud, 16 pounds of muscle in 7.5 months, that's not that crazy. That's really good progress. So this is a questionable transformation, but it's potentially within the realm of possibilities. And I think if you're somebody who's, getting into the gym and you're trying to look at sources to base your own progress off of, something like this could be constructive for you. You should keep in mind he has elite level genetics, and he went from a kind of deprived, suboptimal physiological state to a healthier state, which helped contribute to him adding additional amounts of muscle. But if you were a new lifter just starting out and you have pretty good genetics and you do everything right with your training, I believe 16 pounds of muscle in 7.5 months is possible. That's really, really good progress, but it is possible. And the key point here is that you want to focus on progress that's really good because you want to strive for something high. You want to set big goals for yourself, but you don't want to get fooled into trying to make progress that's unrealistic, like gaining 34 pounds of muscle in 28 weeks. That's going to be counterproductive because you're going to feel discouraged and disappointed because you're not even going to come close to that. Whereas somebody who puts on 16 pounds of muscle in 7.5 months, you look at that and you say, that's what I want to do. And you do everything in your power and you push your limits in a more extreme way than you would if you weren't looking at that as your target and using that as your motivation and inspiration. Maybe you put on 10 pounds in 7.5 months. That's incredible progress. And I would say, you came a bit short, but you're still going to be like, I still did pretty good. It was like within roughly the same realm of progress. It's not like I put on 1 pound in 7.5 months and he puts on 16. I feel completely defeated. I'm a failure. I may as well quit and give up. You may come short of that goal, but you'll probably see enough progress that it seems at least somewhat realistic. So for you trying to construct your view of the world, I think this is an example, whether it was natural or not, that could be factored into your progress, realizing it's kind of at the upper end, the top end of progress that you'll see, but it's something that potentially is realistic and is worthwhile factoring in to your expectations.
I've been training without steroids for about 15 years. I weigh 160 pounds when I'm lean and 180 pounds when I'm bulked at 5'5" tall. Like most people, I put on most of my muscle in my first 5 years of lifting. Both of my parents were bodybuilders, so I trained pretty hard from the start. In my first 5 years, I gained around 20 pounds of muscle. Over the next 5 years, I put on a little more muscle, but not as much, only another 5 pounds or so. Then in the next 5 years after that, it was even less, maybe 1 or 2 pounds. Add it all up, and that's 27 pounds or 12 kilos of muscle that I've built in total. And while some people will build more, some people will build less, every natural lifter doing most things right will experience a similar growth curve with faster growth at the beginning and slower growth as they approach their so-called natural genetic ceiling.
Solid, realistic amount of muscle to gain shown by Jeff Nippert here. First 5 years, gains 20 pounds of muscle, very reasonable. The next few years, gains a few more pounds, maybe 5 pounds. The next few years, a couple more pounds. It slowly diminishes and starts to dwindle. Total amount of muscle that he's put on is 27 pounds, over 10, 15 years of training. This is a very realistic view of what you can expect as a natural lifter. Most people are going to fall into the realm of genetic potential that could produce results similar to this. I think it's pretty realistic to expect 10 pounds, maybe 15 pounds in your first year if you do everything right and train extremely hard and are very consistent. After that, the progress is always going to slow down and come at a slower rate. That's what people call the newbie gains. Aiming to put on 20 to 40 pounds of muscle over 5, 10, 15 years is realistic. If you make all the sacrifices, train extremely hard, are consistent, and progress your training over time. having an open mind, trying additional things, but always showing up, always pushing really hard, you can 100% do that. My personal experience, I was able to put on somewhere between 45 and 50 pounds of muscle naturally. A lot of it comes down to what you're willing to do in your process. There's always more that you can do, and I think most people don't actually activate their full natural potential or reach their natural genetic limit. The closer you get to that level, the more and more extreme things that you're willing to do, I've seen there to be more muscle gain available to you, but most people just don't want to make that choice, which is totally fine. It's up to you as an individual. But overall, I hope this helps you to see what extremely unrealistic expectations are and that you're going to gain 34 pounds of muscle in 28 days.
I gained 34 pounds of lean muscle tissue in 4 weeks.
Kind of questionable, maybe realistic, kind of on the borderline. Maybe some additional substances or sauce used, maybe not. In extreme instances with really good genetics and some kind of weird circumstance, 16 pounds of muscle in 7-8 months, maybe possible. And then, gaining 20 pounds of muscle in your first 4 years, very realistic. Gaining another, 5 to 15 pounds of muscle over the next 3 to 4 years, very realistic. That's how you should expect your journey to go.